On the Talkback Show, on the radio, or whatever audiovisual device you choose to use. Welcome to the GBC podcast, where we talk about the Packers and our hometown of Green Bay. We are the official podcast of the Lot 1 tailgate party at Lambeau Field every home game. This is episode 78, created July 23rd, 2024. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me, Jeff in Minnesota, and Neil on the East Coast. Say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, everyone. I am having a beer that to me screams out summer. It is Dogfish Head Festina Pesh, a peach sour.
And staying with that summer theme, I've got AleSmith Brewery Tower of Flower IPA.
All right. Hello, gentlemen. And I have a purple drink, so that must be a summery drink. It's called an Aviation. And Jeff, we had quite a few of those already this summer. You can find us on YouTube and Twitter at Green Bay Chat, as well as Facebook at the GBC Podcast Green Bay Chat. And just the audio is available on Apple Podcasts, as well as Spotify by searching for Green Bay Chat. Well, where are we? We are at the start of football season. Training camp has begun. We had the annual shareholders meeting. We've got a few things to kind of talk about what's going on in and around Green Bay along with that. But important news, gentlemen, along with training camp, the Packer Pro Shop yesterday has the brand new media guy.
Woohoo!
The ink is still fresh on this one.
Huff that book, John. Huff that book.
When things get slow, Jeff, I will be taking a whiff of my brand new media guide. Well, our plans changed a little bit this summer. We did not get out to the shareholder meeting. Neil, you're still planning on getting through for some of training camp. We're still able to watch all of this stuff through the power of, social media, the internet, all that good stuff. So we're very excited with what is happening already in Green Bay. Maybe we're excited that there's 3 kickers in camp. We'll talk about those guys in a moment. But so far, some rain delayed a little bit. If they still practice through the rain, are you guys, feeling your nipples that you're that excited?
Oh, so much competition. I love this training camp. You look at all the way around the team and there's competition basically everywhere except for QB1. It's going to be a glorious training camp to set up a glorious season.
All right, Neil, the big thing where you're talking about competition, though, is kickers. We know that Anders Carlson in his rookie season struggled a little bit. There's been a lot of talk, maybe too much talk about the kicker position and what should have happened with Carlson last season. But there are now 3 kickers in camp. Can you name those 3 kickers?
Anders Carlson, Greg Joseph, and James Turner. We got 3 kickers.
Of course, that was not off the top of your head.
Of course, it sounds like the perfect situation where that if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have 0 quarterbacks. If you have 3 kickers, you certainly have 0 kickers. And hopefully we'll get somebody out of this competition that's going to not miss 6 extra points in the upcoming year.
I think every season, though, there's always at least a second kicker and a second punter in camp, just because you're not going to, kill a guy having him kick every series or every set during special teams practice. Usually that second kicker or punter is there just to take up space, to, take a couple of reps to give our regular guy a rest. But you're right, Neil, these are 2 other guys in town that have been told they have a legitimate chance to make the roster and they can prove their mettle while they are in town.
I mean, Greg Joseph has 5 years of NFL experience, including 3 in that horrible purple city. So yeah, we'll see what's happening. But obviously, this is a real live competition. And James Turner from Michigan, also somebody who did very well for the national champs, and certainly somebody who kicked for a national championship team, is somebody who's going to be truly competitive.
And Turner kicked on Monday. He was the first man up. He went 4 for 6 on Monday. Not a bad showing for first day in camp. Rain, I think, hampered things a little bit on Tuesday.
They practiced for an hour 47 in the rain, and the kicking and everything else was a little bit sloppy. Basically, everything was sloppy except for the defensive line during today's camp. But it's a competition that's not going to be decided in 1 day or 2 days. It's going to be decided over time.
It was some heavy rain out there too, and certainly some great diehard fans still making it over to Ray Nitschke Field to hang out in the stands and get to watch what they could. And, football is a sport played in any weather. So it made sense to get out there. Good thing it was a warm summer rain as opposed to kind of a cold October rain or November rain.
Or snow.
That would be truly unusual to have snow in July.
For July, yes.
In July.
Monday was a beautiful day weather-wise, and the shareholder meeting was held. Not everybody showed up. There's like 300,000 shareholders, isn't there, Jeff?
It's actually over 500,000 shareholders.
Yeah, it's like
500,000
542,000 or something like that.
Needless to say, they were not all there on Monday.
Present company, we weren't there. So by all accounts, I'm guessing it was a good shareholders meeting. I mean, it's fascinating because it allows the rest of the NFL to get a peek sort of behind the curtain of the NFL, because Packers have to disclose what they receive from the NFL. And it's a really, really big number.
Well, and with that, Mark Murphy told the shareholders that revenue is great.
Yep.
He started talking about, the Titletown units, you can buy a Titletown unit somewhere around the stadium. They're 95% filled, if you can believe that.
John, do you actually care about this shit? It's like the financials, whatever.
We've
got football play. We've got football
this is what
going
Mark
on now.
Murphy told
Let's
you guys.
talk about football, for God's sake.
Well, here's what Mark Murphy says about your football team. He says they are popular in Brazil, Germany, and Mexico. How about that? And Mark Murphy also announced that Brian Bulaga will retire as a Green Bay Packer.
Brian Bulaga, Iowa.
The locker room's currently being upgraded. They're adding a third locker room with Titletown funds that they have available to them. And did you hear Peyton Manning and Omaha Productions working on a Green Bay Packers documentary?
Okay, now can we talk about football?
Okay, go ahead, Neil.
So what I'm excited about, as I said before, is the amount of competition. And I was looking at the different areas of the team and the fact that basically wherever you're looking across the team, there are different questions that are going to be answered. And the line is where everything starts for any football team. And we've got a lot of unsettled positions on the Packers line this year, and how this line shakes up is going to tell us a lot about where this team is going to go. But if you just look at the potential linemen that we have, so in theory, our starting five is Rasheed Walker, Elgton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Sean Ryan, and Zach Tom. But behind that group, we've got a whole series of different people who are in the mix as far as starting is concerned. Royce Newman, Caleb Jones, Jordan Morgan. Is he going to start in his rookie year at the beginning or later on? Jacob Monk, our center from Duke, Travis Glover, Andre Dillard, a newly signed free agent, Luke Tenuta, Kadeem Telford, and Donovan Jennings. There's a whole bunch of players that have that potential to be part of that mix for the line. And it's not just that we don't know who's going to be starting. We don't even know what positions people are going to be playing. And a lot of where this team is going to go this year is going to depend on how things shake out in the line. And I'm going to say, I'm excited about wherever this line ends up going, but in particular, Sean Ryan, I've been talking him up now for 3 years now. If Sean Ryan ends up being that starting right guard, I think we're going to be in really good shape.
And Neil, I did read Jacob Monk got some shots at center today with Sean Clifford at quarterback. Clifford kind of taking the lead role. They were running some red zone plays in the rain. They end up fumbling 2 snaps. So you look at that and you say, is it a stat? Is it 2 fumbled snaps? Yes. But we can look at the weather there. And I think the important part to look at it is Monk is getting a shot. He is going to push Josh Myers. We learned last year Myers struggled. And even going back to last year when we talked about players we wanted to break out, Josh Myers is a guy I really wanted to break out. I want that center to be Mr. Reliable and a good anchor in the middle of that line. And unfortunately, Josh Myers did not do it last year. So now to get some competition, Neil, as you like, Monk is there.
Bring it on.
So Neil, with a lot of the positions kind of up for grabs, do you have any concerns that there really isn't a lot of kind of unity, or, it's not solid at this point? Or is it just you think it's going to work itself out?
Obviously, I don't know. I mean, the key element of the Packers, though, has been this versatility and the ability of people to play different positions. And I have confidence in our coaching staff to figure out that right mix. And, the question is it a right mix that is going to be 5 guys who are true starters, or is it going to be, say, 3 starters and a couple of patchwork that we're going to be rotating around? And I'm hoping by the time the season starts, they'll be done rotating, but we don't know. And there's a lot of open questions as far as the line is concerned, but it certainly has the potential to be a really good line.
Well, that happened last year, late in the season. There was some rotation, which seemed to work out. Actually, I mean that's not sort of the tried and true method, but there did seem to be some success with that. So maybe there is a method to the madness.
I hope there are 5 guys who take control of the line.
And when you look at the list of names that you gave, Neil, and you throw Jordan Morgan in there, there's effectively 6 potential starters for 5 positions there. And you throw on top of that the versatility that some of these players have to play multiple positions. The speculation, can Zach Tom move into guard or even center? Which side of the line can Elton Jenkins play on? Which side of the line can Jordan Morgan play on? So that, coupled with, Jeff, the concept again last year, rotating linemen in. It's not something that's common at any level of football. Skill position players, yeah. Running backs, receivers, they run the plays in, things like that. Rare occasion you see quarterbacks swapping out, but linemen, just because you get that good congruent group of 5 guys that work as one unit, and that's what your goal is, in my opinion.
Yeah, you want that cohesiveness, but again, if they're sort of used to it, though, maybe you still get that cohesiveness. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I would go even further, John. By my count, we've got 9 potential starters for 5 positions, because Newman has certainly started before. Jacob Monk, you noted, was starting yesterday, and Andre Dillard was starting at right tackle today while Zach Tom is dealing with a pec injury. And he started previously for Tennessee. So there's a lot of fluidity, and we will find out over the next month or so what's actually going to happen.
You're right about Andre Dillard. I already forgot about him, Neil. But remembering when he did come into town, the knock against him is that he just had a terrible season in Tennessee last year. And the question was, is this someone who's really going to be competing for a starting position? Or, again, is it something to say, we've got another guy in this spot, we can get Jordan Morgan, maybe it's a placeholder while Jordan Morgan gets his legs under him. Ideally, you want your first round draft pick to be someone who can start right away. It's sometimes tricky for offensive linemen, but with that said, we've seen 4th round and 5th round offensive linemen start right away, or 2nd round centers for that matter. We've had a string of luck there. So there's certainly, I think, good scouting in the Packers organization over the last quite a few years to find linemen. I trust them that they got the right guy in Jordan Morgan, and through practice, we're going to get the right 5 guys out there.
Let's stay on positions that the Packers have scouted well, but we're not sure what's actually going to happen at the top of the grouping. Who are the Packers' top 4 wide receivers going to be? Who are going to be the dominant players? Because you take Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Malik Heath, Bo Melton, Grant DuBose. That's 7 wide receivers competing for 6 or maybe 7 positions. But I would argue, based on how the play went last year, we don't know who the top 3 receivers are going to be. I think you can make the argument for Jaden Reed and any other 2 people within that group essentially being the starting 3 wide receivers.
I think that the nod has to go to Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, but Dontavian Wicks, wants to be in that conversation for sure. So there's 4 right there when you throw Jaden Reed into the mix there. It's one of those things that's always nice. That I would say we've been blessed for quite a few years where we're going to spend time talking about, well, who is the 6th or 7th wide receiver? Who is the 3rd tight end, right? Who is the 5th linebacker that they're going to keep? I think the fact that we've had solid starters and good depth on this team over the years, it makes it fun to talk about. And yeah, as you said, Neil, competition. We're going to get to watch some great competition in camp.
Well, then of those receivers, most teams have a definitive wide receiver 1. Packers, we're talking 3, maybe 4 guys, right? So that's kind of an unusual position too. There is no dominant one receiver, which, I think that seems to be working also to their advantage, because, who do defensive backs, who do safeties, who does the defense key on? I think that's advantageous. I think probably with continued health, there may be, a couple receivers that they're probably going to separate themselves as being kind of the go-to guys, and whoever Jordan Love is going to be comfortable with. That's huge as well.
Another position where we don't know who the starter is going to be is tight end. Obviously, Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft both had stellar rookie years last year. Is only one of those going to start at tight end, or are we going to go into often using two tight end sets? And then we've got two people beyond that in Ben Sims and Tyler Davis, who are also going to be in the mix. Our tight end position is so strong, and I need to sort of cover up Jeff because I don't want to see too much excitement right now. But what are we going to do? And are we going to be able to keep just one of those tight ends on the field at a time? And how is our offense going to change knowing that we actually have two tight ends who are really good?
Well, we know Tucker and Luke are sticking around, right? Between Sims and Tyler Davis, I kind of was ready to let Tyler Davis go last year. He ended up on injured reserve. Unless something changed where he found glue on his fingers that he's going to catch balls, I'm not too worried about losing him. The thing with Ben Sims is, this is a guy who was undrafted in Minnesota. They snatched him off the Vikings practice squad, and he was kind of a firecracker, right? Whenever he'd come in, it'd be like, yes, 89, Ben Sims is in there. And he'd make a catch here and there, and that was it. And you wouldn't see anything else from him. And it's just like a guy that just is like, that kid that you root for. It's like, all right, he got in the game. Yeah, where'd he go? That's I'm hoping for some great growth from Ben Sims this year, that he gets to stick around.
Well, how many tight ends we keep is going to depend on how often we're playing a two tight end set as well. I mean, four tight ends, I think, is very much in play for the Packers this year. And who knows with what's going on at other positions, whether we might even go to five tight end. I mean, that seems ridiculous, of course, but still, if you're playing two tight ends, then that's going to make a difference.
Right, Jeff, they're good special teams guys. So the possibility of both Tyler Davis and Ben Sims sticking around because they're going to hit on teams, that's a possibility as well.
Of course, when you're talking about all of these numbers of players that you're going to keep at wide receiver and tight end, the question then becomes, well, what are you really going to do at the running back position? I think the running back position is really where they're going to be questioned. So we certainly know we're going to keep Josh Jacobs. We certainly know we're going to keep Marshawn Lloyd. Is AJ Dillon going to stick around? People are saying in camp, Matt LaFleur specifically said that it's the best he's seen AJ Dillon look in his time as the Packers. What about an Emmanuel Wilson, who's a star during the preseason last year and certainly had flashes during the regular season? We've also, at least formally, got a fullback in Henry Pearson. Do we keep three running backs even? And if they are, is AJ Dillon one of those that is on the brink of ending his time with the Packers?
See, I think AJ Dillon, he's got the proverbial chip, right? He came back for $1 million contract. If he has a breakout season, or if he has like a really, really good season, will he be a Packer next year? Perhaps not. Will he get a big contract somewhere else? Perhaps. So I think that's sort of his motivation. And if he maybe is a little lighter or something like that, I mean, he's still Quadzilla, so he's still a big guy. I think it's going to be very interesting, and certainly in training camp, he's going to work to really be on the team and hopefully make a big contribution.
Well, there was also speculation that he would move to that fullback position as well. Now, I haven't seen anything other than I think it was speculation earlier in the spring. So that's something that, is it a possibility? I guess it depends on whether AJ Dillon can play that spot. We'll wait and see. But, he's endeared himself to the locals. He is a Packer guy, right? I mean, everybody's in love with AJ Dillon, and it would be a hard loss to let him go, whether it's this year or next year.
Yeah.
If it's next year, if he has a great season and someone gives him money next year and he goes somewhere else, I think everybody will be happy for him. So that's one of those things where it's like, great, AJ, let's have a great season then.
Yep, win-win.
And, I guess we have to talk about quarterback. Jordan Love hasn't been there for a couple of days. Neil, I did not grab my cleats and hop in the car to drive up to help out. I was tempted, but, I thought, well, Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt definitely have a handle on things. These are two young guys, good size, good pocket quarterbacks. Clifford showed flashes last year in training camp. I'm looking forward to see what Pratt does. They're getting some chances. Well, Love is waiting to get back in the fold, but we know Jordan Love is our guy.
But I would say there's a big difference between this year preseason and last year's preseason. In last year's preseason, Jordan Love needed to play a fair amount in those preseason games to establish a rhythm. And this year, I don't think there's any chance we're going to see much of Jordan Love. And that means we're going to get a lot of long spells of both Pratt and Clifford. And I think it's going to be a really good battle for that backup quarterback position.
So do they keep 3?
No. But the rules, I think the rules are different this year again on the emergency quarterback and what you can bring in on game day. So I think they'll have 2 active roster, and then the third quarterback will be technically practice squad, but I think they can bring him on. I'm talking out my ass right now. I don't know what the change in rules is for that emergency quarterback. If they have that flexibility, yeah. I mean, there'll be 3 in town, but I think only 2 on the active roster. Does that make sense? And I think most likely to start the season, you're looking at Love and Clifford just from the experience level, and Michael Pratt's going to get a chance to continue to show what he can show to see if he's better than Sean Clifford.
Right. But continuing on Jeff's thought, though, are the Packers going to take a risk if Pratt actually shows real potential of allowing him to go on a practice squad? I don't think you can take that risk for somebody who is at a premium position.
You're right, Neil, because if he does show flashes in the preseason, it's kind of a wild card draft pick. Nobody really knew where he'd go. He seems like the dude, right? I mean, he's just completely chill. He may be good. And you're right. Do you want to expose him then? And, some other desperate team, picks him up. So,
well, that's strategizing in practice. Then you only let him do stuff in closed practices, stuff that isn't going to go on tape, stuff that isn't going to be seen. Maybe you give him limited opportunity in the 3 preseason games when you say, hey, we know what we have here. We just don't want to let anyone else know what we have here.
I think that you've got to have it as a pure competition, though, for the backup quarterback position. I mean, Sean Clifford has 1 year of experience. It's not like he's, got 5 years and he's the obvious person who can play the backup quarterback. We don't know that Clifford can play backup quarterback any better than that we know Pratt can play backup quarterback. So I think you've got to let them both go all out for that number 2 position.
And again, we're blessed that we're talking about who's going to be the backup quarterback, the number 4 tight end, the number 7 wide receiver. Are we going to keep 10 linemen on the offensive line? That's how blessed we are with this team.
These are good problems to have.
Nitpicking the depth. Yes, this is a great problem to have. And let's take a look at the defensive side now. Neil, I'm thankful you put the picture of Jeff Hafley up there because I don't think I could have picked him out of a police lineup. So it's good to start to see some pictures of our new defensive coordinator. But really, Neil, that means a new scheme is coming to town.
Oh, I'm so excited about, well, first of all, not having Joe Barry, fire Joe Barry. Thankfully, that's all done. But this adjustment and how the defense is going to play differently. Obviously, in practice so far, there's been a lot of excitement about the attack mode of the defensive line. But, the big thing is it's a switch to a 4-3, but a 4-3 in a modern NFL doesn't necessarily mean sort of a classic 4-3. So you think of 4-3 with 4 defensive backs, but we're not going to play 4 defensive backs that often. Does a 4-3 really mean a 4-2-5? Does it mean the occasional 3-3-5? We've got to have many different possibilities as far as our defense is concerned, and how we decide on that 3 for linebacker versus 4 for the D-backs or 2 versus 5 is going to make a big impact on how we're going to play and specifically what we need as far as personnel are concerned.
And Jeff, you had said earlier, your question really was, well, what positions are we questionable on? And I really think that the safety position we were questionable on last year, I think we're still there. Now, there's a lot of talk about Xavier McKinney, and we saw in the New York Giants, I think, with the hard knocks, the kind of the teaser hard knocks, who is the one guy that they are going to miss or they are definitely missing, and that's Xavier McKinney. And this is a guy that the more I hear about him, I've heard him talk, the more excited I get about it. And who's going to be back there with him? Is it going to be our rookie Javon Bullard? Is someone else going to step up into that position? So we need to see what's going to happen in the safety position.
The great news about this is that it's not all rookies. Now, there was a lot of draft choices, a lot of draft capital went here, but that signing of Xavier McKinney, I mean, that's huge. I mean, because that suddenly gives the whole defense legitimacy, and especially the big question mark last year. He's good and he's a leader I mean, and he seems to be someone that you could build a defense around.
I'm going to broaden this out to the whole defensive backfield, right? We've got two players who are absolute studs between Jair and Xavier McKinney within our defensive back unit. And then you throw in the people like Eric Stokes, who's obviously the biggest question mark as far as the entire defensive backfield. I mean, if Eric Stokes returns that first round draft pick level play that he did his rookie year and then moves beyond that as far as his development is concerned, that's a big difference. But if you look at the total group of our defensive backs, there are 10 different players who potentially either could start or have started previously for us in that defensive backfield. You had the Ballantines and the Valentines. You had bring Keyshawn Nixon into play. Anthony Johnson Jr. had a lot of really nice plays last year. Valentine obviously did as well. And then the additional picks that we had in the safety position with Williams and Oladapo, any of those guys could be in the mix and could be in the mix very quickly.
And that's what's nice about the defense, right? Create that chaos, whereas the offensive skill player is a little more slow to develop perhaps, but the defense, hopefully these guys from the get-go. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to watch. I think really where the difference is going to be is like blown coverages and things like that in the preseason. Like how good are they at the position? And I think that's going to sort of be the weeder, but it's again, this sort of embarrassment of riches, and kudos to the front office, right? They went out, they said, okay, this is a huge need. And to be able to land Xavier McKinney, like surprise, right? I mean, who saw that one coming? Like instant credibility and depth to that position.
But the Valentine and Anthony Johnson Jr. combination, as far as their development is concerned, there was so much potential that you could see there last year. And yes, they were rookies and they played like rookies a lot of the time, but there's so much possibility with those players, and seeing those players really developing is one of the things that could make this into a great defense if that were to happen.
Well, and that's where you get, the attacking, the speed and the energy of these positions. And you saw that a lot, last year on a somewhat moribund defense all the way around. So now again, you've got this new life, you've got some really key new players and a lot of new blood. So yeah, the energy, the enthusiasm, and the attack mode. None of this sit back shit. Attack mode.
Well, you've got Jonathan Owens, Rudy Ford, Darnell Savage gone. Darnell Savage jerseys, by the way, on the clearance rack for $29 at the Packer Pro Shop. But
I already have one, John.
You already have one. They draft 3 rookie safeties in Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, and Ketan Oladapo. And while Evans was the 4th round pick, Oladapo a 5th round pick, Oladapo's 3 inches taller, and that's the thing that I like. I like him at 6'2". Maybe if Evan Williams at 5'11", 200 pounds is a little bit speedier, whoever's going to hit harder and be able to come up in the run game, that's the guy that I want to see. And whether it's Oladapo, Williams, Bullard, I don't care. But like I said, I'm really excited about Xavier McKinney back there.
And then, of course, somebody who was drafted as somebody with the ability to develop quickly, Kalen King, as somebody who's not going to start certainly, but somebody who could be making contributions. And we throw in a Benny Sapp and a Zane Anderson. They're people who are going to be competing for these positions. If somebody falters or if somebody gets injured, there are going to be opportunities for lots of different players.
And we talk about the flexibility of the offensive line. There's certainly a lot of hybrid players. On the defensive side, you guys that can play cornerback safety or safety linebacker as well. But going back to that 4-3 concept, Neil, it changed the scope of our middle linebackers or our whole linebacking course. Speaking of which, Devondre Campbell jerseys are also $29 on the clearance rack at the Packer Pro Shop, and they have a lot of them. But Devondre Campbell is a guy that, again, came into town and lit the town on fire, became a Packer guy, and through his family, they really kind of entrenched themselves in town. It was rough to see him be let go, but he's got another good opportunity ahead of him. That's great. Now let's talk about what's going to happen with this new 4-3 concept, because we've got Quay Walker in there. We get the highly coveted Edgerrin Cooper. What else is going to come around in that linebacking core, Neil?
I mean, that's why I think that this is going to, in many cases, be a 4-2-5 against good passing teams. And whether Javon Bullard is considered a linebacker to count it as a 4-3 or not, I mean, it's clear that Walker and Cooper are the two people that are going to be driving everything. You're going to get play from Tyron Hopper. Isaiah McDuffie is certainly going to be in the mix. Eric Wilson in the mix, but you've got two people who are either were first or potential or considered to be first round talent in that linebacker position with Walker and Cooper. And it's going to be fun to see those people play with that line in front of them that's going to be giving them space to operate.
Well, and that's the key. And that's what we were looking for, sort of that back that can, or that linebacker that can go side to side, that's going to fill the holes that the defensive line, anybody squirts through there, boom. I mean, they're going to be there because they are really, really fast and bring a ton when they hit.
And speaking of fast, today during camp, Cooper broke up a pass to Christian Watson. So you've got our linebacker covering. We're hopefully not in the Preston Smith covering wide receivers, but you get your linebacker, your rookie linebacker covering your top wide receiver, arguably, and that's going to be a person who's got the talent to do a lot of different things. And this goes into the whole question about San Francisco last year and how San Francisco's linebackers just completely neutralized the middle of the field. And hopefully these guys are going to develop with this defense to be able to do something similar.
And where does it all start? It all starts up front. And now with this change to, again, a 4-3, Jeff, you said the embarrassment of riches. Now let's take a look at all of the guys that can rotate in and out of that defensive line. First of all, you've got your big bodies in Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, Devontae Wyatt, even Colby Wood and Carl Brooks, right? And then you have your speed guys from the outside, Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, even Kingsley Enagbari. Pick any four. Pull two big guys and two speed guys out of a hat and put them out there. And just like the offensive line, it's going to be finding the right chemistry of four guys, but even the depth is going to be great because you're going to have a second line. It's going to be like hockey, line 1 and line 1A of
Right.
Putting defensive guys out up front.
The rotation is going to make a big difference, but also the rotation within the line, and that they're not going to stay on one side. And so Rashawn Gary had a stretch during today's practice where he had 3 sacks and 4 plays, but he was lining left, he was lining right. They're moving him all the way around in order to create mismatches. And I love the concept of creating mismatches and using that talent so that the offense has no idea what's coming to them.
And in the middle, one Kenny Clark. This guy's just going to be hole in the middle. And because there's going to be, 4 guys up front now, that's going to make his job a lot easier. There's going to be, you have to key on different players. And so Kenny and the Packers paid Kenny as well, right?
Hey, we have to note, right? Kenny gets the rare third contract. This is a guy who I think definitely is going to be a Packer for life, right? And you got to remember, Kenny is only 28 years old,
right? Yeah,
he's got a lot of miles left in him, and this is a big body, a big guy that just has really anchored that defensive line. And it is nice to have someone that solid up front.
Right. And like I said, that's what's going to create the matchups. And I think he's going to be more successful this year because he's going to get matchups that are going to work perhaps to his favor. And you might see, is he going to be I would say Gilbert Brown, or is he going to be, are they going to drop him back a little bit? Are they going to give him a little more room to roam? And I think they probably will. And I think that's what's going to be really fun to watch. His versatility as well, a stalwart in the middle, but then mixing it up a little bit as well.
Well, let's go back 30 years even and talk about solid defensive lines, right? We had Reggie White.
Yep.
And we talk about the ability to put 4 guys out there, any 4 guys out there. The one thing about Reggie White is he literally could have played any 4 spots on that defensive line. You could have put him in the middle to be a run stopper. You definitely had him on the outside to be a pass rusher. I don't think we have anyone like that. I don't think there's anyone like that, like a Reggie White. Now that Fletcher Cox has retired, thank God.
And Aaron Donald retired as well.
We don't have that, but we do have, like I said, we have a slate of guys that can fill the 2 interior positions, and we have a slate of guys that can fill the 2 exterior positions. Yes. And that's what it's all about, is finding that chemistry and getting the competition going.
Well, and what happened last year as well, kind of that rotation piece as well, right? Kind of
Right.
keeping the defensive linemen fresh. But there did seem to be some success with that. So it'll be interesting to see if that continues as well, that rotation.
Rotation is a bigger thing for defensive linemen, but the biggest problem is when you do rotation, how much of a drop off is with that second group. And I don't think there's much of a drop off for the second group this year.
That's what I was saying is you've got 2 groups of 4 that are going to be fine there. And defense, it's more important to have that fresh legs. Neil, you're an offensive lineman. You know why? Because on offense, you know where the play is going. Defense, it's mentally taxing and physically taxing to be the reactionary position. And that's why having 2 solid groups of 4 guys on defense up front, awesome. Love it. Let's keep 8 guys and see where this goes.
So we've covered the offense, we've covered the defense. So I guess we segue to the asshats then, right?
That's the only group left.
Hey, time to start
process
drinking.
of elimination. Yeah, have a drink. Yeah, we need to make a drinking game out of special teams in some fashion, right?
My poor liver.
Well, as we mentioned earlier, there's 3 kickers in camp. So when you have 3 kickers, do you have a kicker? Ideally, you do, because that's what the competition is about there. Daniel Whelan at punter, though, seems to be pretty set, right? I think he did all right last year. And it's Matt Orzik who's going to be sticking around town in the long snapper position. Peter Bowden from Wisconsin, the guy they got as an undrafted free agent. I think people had high hopes, being a Wisconsin Badger, that he would be the guy. He was cut today to make room for Jacob Eason, who's in camp, to basically take up reps with Clifford and Pratt while we're waiting for Jordan Love to show up. Does that mean that they told Peter Bowden to get out of town, or did they tell him, hey, stick around town, or, stay close by, maybe you'll come back? That we don't know, but we'll wait and see.
The real interesting part about the asshats this year, though, is the change to the kickoff rules and how that's going to change the personnel that are employed in the kickoffs. And, it's not, 10 guys running at full speed into one another anymore. And there's going to be a lot more opportunity for skilled players to make an impact with the special teams. And that's obviously going to have an impact on where the choices are for special teams, but we're not going to know that until we see them play.
So I think we've beat the asshats here thoroughly. So I think we probably move on to
and it's nice to have, again, it's nice to have debates about who our 3rd running back and 4th tight end is going to be. I'm not worried about the long snapper. They'll have the right kid in town.
He's got one job to do. Hopefully he won't have
someone's going to handle it. Whoever your punter is going to be your holder. So Whelan's got that job. He's doing all right. Which kicker he works with, we'll get a kicker in town.
The most important thing about a long snapper is you don't want to ever know his name, because you're only going to use his name in vain.
Except for Rob Davis. He's a Hall of Famer.
And going from special teams to special people, one of the best parts of this podcast is the people you get to meet. And we've had Peter, the draft guru, the IT hedgehog, on several times. And I was fortunate enough to be in London this summer for a few days. I actually went to watch the Euros final with England versus Spain. But while I was there, I met up with Peter, and thankfully Peter and his wife, Rhonda, decided that they were going to come down and meet me in London. And we had brunch and walked around London and the canals. And Peter is even better in person than he is on the video tubes, and really enjoyed meeting with Peter and Rhonda. And it was a great time. And I look forward to seeing them again next time I see them. But a beautiful several hours that we had in London.
Now, did you make sure to push him to get him on board for the draft in April, that he's coming to Green Bay?
He had concerns about the crowds in a way that goes, I guess, beyond what John's concerns about the crowds are. But
wow.
Rhonda is from she's from Houston, but she's got family in Atlanta. And so he thought maybe that he might be going to Jacksonville potentially as a game this year, since it's close enough to Atlanta. But I think it's still wide open. But it's been a while since Peter's been to a game, and it's been a while since he's been to Lambeau Field. So whatever it takes to get Peter here, we want to see him.
Awesome. Well, it's funny that at first blush on that picture, I'm like, you two kind of a little brother like.
You're long lost brothers. They
work with me here. I'm like, at first glance, it's like, Jesus, look at these guys, right?
in the background on your picture, Neil, is that a Hey Kids, Big Ben, Parliament?
It is not, is the St. Pancras train station.
All right. And that's important. Why?
All Harry Potter fans will know where this is. So,
all right. So we are now crossing over to a Harry Potter podcast here as well in the off season.
I hope not. I hope not.
We got to put something out there for summertime, Neil. Well, it was great that you got to meet Peter. And again, thanks to Peter for, the draft work. And we spend a lot of time certainly talking about our rookies today and getting to see them in person in training camp. Certainly, if you can't be in town, the internet is doing a great job of keeping you updated. Any number of Packers beat writers, whether it's Pete Doherty or Wes Hodkiewicz, or even following Cheesehead TV. They're all out there. We follow them as well. There's a great network of Packer fans, Packer podcasters, Packer social media people that you're going to find all the video and information that you need to get this summer. And it's just a couple of weeks away before family night. Then we've got some preseason games, and then we are back at home. Tailgating season, Neil, is on its way. In fact, it is 1 month from tomorrow, I believe, August 24th. Is that our first preseason game? August 24th, August 26th, somewhere in there. It's a month away. We will be there for the preseason game, as well as all of the regular season home games as well. So we'll talk more about tailgating as the summer goes on. Speculation, though, just came out today. White helmets. Jeff, you did a big presentation for us on a show about the white jerseys at home.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of the white at home because they don't play well. They don't look right. But now they're talking white pants, white jerseys, and white helmets. What do you think?
No. I don't know. The NFL is a marketing machine, right? So whatever they can do to generate new jerseys, but that doesn't sound appealing to me at all. Hopefully they don't play this at home, and hopefully it wouldn't frickin' snow. I don't know what happens, but I like the green and gold. Sorry.
Gentlemen, I need to tell you though, we are lucky as football fans that we're not in the situation that the other football fans are, where they have 3 new jerseys every single year, and fans will go out and get those 3 new jerseys for their team every year. So let's hope the NFL is certainly thinking about that from a money perspective, and let's hope that doesn't become a normal thing.
So it certainly is a sign of the summer doldrums that we're talking about whether they're going to wear white helmets. All right. Who cares? Who fucking cares, right? It's training camp. We're excited to be back and following our team. We're looking forward to preseason, regular season. We're looking forward to you guys getting into town. We mentioned it in the last podcast. We are looking forward to our trip to Nashville in week 3. With that, you guys, any final thoughts to get us through the summer?
It seems like, for starters, the summer's flying by. It's like the draft just happened, and it's not fall is in the air yet, but that anticipation, that hope, that excitement, right? The training camp brings, as we've talked about here, there's tons of competition. Every fan thinks their team is going to the Super Bowl. Well, there's only 2 that get there. But you know what? This Packer team, there's so much potential. And whether it's the national media, whether it's the local media, I mean, this is a good team. And they're on the rise. And you know what? I want to see a Super Bowl this year, gentlemen.
Wow, you're going hardcore on this. I certainly would. It's got to be where every Packers fan is thinking, right? I mean, we talked about this on the post-draft analysis, that the Packers were drafting for now. We've got a team that is built for now. And given the way that the NFL works, you've got to go after your opportunities when you have them. We've got a young core of players on both offense and on defense. Young in the sense that they are not expensive, and it means that we can have a lot of pieces at the same time before we're priced out of a lot of those players. And it's obviously a situation where the way that the previous year ended, the way that the offseason moved, we can see where the next direction can be. We can also see there's not a dominant team sitting in the NFC. It is a weaker conference compared to the AFC. We don't have a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, a Joe Burrow, and other players like that are sitting in front of us. Why not Jordan Love as the top quarterback in the NFC?
Here.
Go.
And I'm looking forward to, like I said, tailgating. Saturday, August 24th is going to get it started with a preseason game. We will be in lot 1 for 10 home games, 1 preseason, 9 regular season, and any home games in the postseason will be there. Doesn't matter if it's green package, gold package, doesn't matter what the weather is, day game, night game. So put the lot 1 tailgate party on your list of things to see. If you come to Green Bay for any games this year, hit us up. Let us know if you're coming in. We'll give you some advice on where to go. We'll talk more about the great things to find in Green Bay as the season goes on. But if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. Doesn't cost anything. You can find the GBC podcast at Green Bay Chat. That's all one word. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Facebook, it's the GBC podcast, Green Bay Chat. And may you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
I want to dedicate this podcast episode to my father. He was the biggest fan of the podcast, and may you rest in peace. Dad, you're the greatest. Thank you for everything.